Okay, good morning everyone and welcome to our Google Parents Workshop today. When you join, just a reminder that this meeting is being recorded and please do keep your microphones on mute. And obviously we will share this recording after so that if you weren't able to attend, you'll be able to come back and to go through anything that you may have missed as well. This is our team. So we've got Graham McCauley, who's our Director of Technology for Learning, myself, Rachel Kodup, I'm the lead teacher for Technology for Learning, and we've also got Cheryl Shirley as well, who leads on technology with me. So I'll be taking you through this Key Stage 2 Google Parents Workshop, and I'll be sort of talking a little bit about what Google Classroom looks like. It's important to sort of note that obviously within your school this may be slightly different, but hopefully this session will just allow you to be a little bit more familiar with using Google Classroom and then just a little bit of an exposure about some of the tools that we use as well. So a little bit just about us. So we're Leo Academy Trust. We're made up of our 7 sites, and we've got about 3,550 pupils and 415 staff, and one overarching digital strategy that leads the work that we do with technology. So in terms of this, we wanted to sort of have some key factors for us that would make our digital strategy successful in our implementation. And that was very much around our ease of use for our pupils, hence why we decided to go down Chromebooks. And I'll talk a little bit about Chromebooks in a moment. And then our technical management, so being able to manage all of our services directly in the cloud as well. And then the costs as well. So wanting to be able to keep those costs down so that we're able to actually provide the Chromebooks at no cost to you as parents, and also that flexibility as well. So being able to have an approach where children can use the Chromebook both as a laptop and also as a tablet as well. So in terms of our digital strategy, our technology for learning strategy is all about helping children learn. And this leads our Key Stage 2 one-to-one Chromebook rollout. So last year it was launched in year 4. And obviously during COVID earlier on this year, this was magnified through the use of Chromebooks. And as a result, we are rolling this out over the next 2 years. So for those that don't know what a Chromebook is just a small computer or a laptop, and most of these can actually be converted into a tablet as well. So a Chromebook runs the Chrome OS. So in a similar way that if you were using a Windows laptop, then it's running Windows, or if you're using a Mac, then it's running the Mac OS. So this one on the screen is similar to what your children will have. And Chromebooks are great because they are really reliable. Generally, we don't have that many problems, especially when it comes to IT. And with sort of last year, we had about 1,500 devices, and within that time, we only had to send about 5 or 6 back due to a fault. So one of the other reasons that Chromebooks are great as well is they give your children and teachers devices that can help them in the classroom as well. It's important to remember that the Chromebook is just another tool. So it doesn't mean that they are used in every lesson. It's very much around having that tool that can support them in their learning. So teachers get a lot of support and training, and that's part of our role, Graham, myself and Cheryl, to actually support teachers in using the right tool that help children learn. So, in a similar way that children are still doing their handwriting and exercise books and using physical tools in the classroom, their Chromebook is just another one of those in their tool bag. So why Chromebooks? So Google for Education has had a huge momentum, and obviously all of these statistics were prior to COVID. We've actually seen sort of Chromebooks being a very hard device to actually get your hands on, following obviously everything that's happened with COVID this year. So I won't go through those statistics, but it is one of the most commonly used devices in education. And it's also worth saying that GSuite for Education and GSuite sort of more broadly is used by a range of big companies around the world. So helping to sort of upskill our pupils to be ready when they enter the workforce as well. So essentially this session is all about Google Classroom, and I'm going to take you through a series of slides, and then I will actually jump in and demo what Google Classroom looks like from the student's perspective, so that you can actually understand where you'll find their work if you're sort of wondering what it is that they're doing, if you want to be able to support them and help them in being able to upload their work. Then obviously being familiar with the platform that we use makes it that little bit easier for you. So in terms of how you find Google Classroom, obviously if your child is using their Chromebook, then it's very easy, because when they log in to their Chromebook, they will already be signed into their Google account. Now, if they're using another device at home, perhaps a home computer or maybe your device, it's important to note that obviously their Google account won't be signed in, so they would actually have to sign in on that device. But when they do get in, all they need to do to get onto Google Classroom is actually tap onto the apps launcher, which you can see in the top here, and then go on to Classroom. They can either as well go to just classroom.google.com, or if you are on their Chromebook, then they can open that Google Classroom app as well. So once they've actually navigated and found that Classroom icon, this will then launch Google Classroom app. Okay, and what is that they are then taken to is a screen that will display all of their classes that they are in. So it could be that they are a part of a couple of other classrooms, especially if they are perhaps a digital leader, or they're doing their pupil passport. Then actually they might be in another class, so they may need to toggle between their classes. But essentially this is where they will see all of the classes that they are in. So in terms of navigating the classroom, and I know that this might be a little bit hard to see, but obviously we will send out these slides so that you can access it after the training. So in terms of a couple of things that are just worthwhile noting and sort of focusing on, is that if I ever opened up Google Classroom and perhaps I wanted to toggle and see one of my other classes, I can do that just simply by tapping onto the three lines that you can see in that top left where number 1 is. This will allow you to quickly switch between your different classes, and you can always find which class you're in just simply by looking at that number 2 at the top here, or using that banner at the top here. And then across the top, you have your stream, your classwork, and people. So stream is where all of your assignments and an opportunity to sort of have any announcements or be able to share anything with your entire class. It's also a spot where you can go in and ask any questions to your teachers as well. The classwork tab that's at the top is where you can go in and actually view your assignments. So if you're actually looking, okay, where is the work for today, then I can go in using that tab here under number 4. And then people is just where you can see the teachers and the other students that are within that class there. If ever you did need to go into, say, for example, your Google Drive or go in to create a Google Slides, then you can access this just simply by using that apps launcher in the top. And then obviously you have your Google account in here as well. So as I mentioned, if you're using, say, a home device where perhaps you have your different children logged in, then this is where they would actually need to go to be able to toggle between their accounts, or equally if you're using your own account as well. And then we obviously come down to the actual stream section. So with number 9 here, this is where you can actually go in and share something. Now, it's worth noting that obviously anything that you share there is visible by everyone in the classroom. So we do try and sort of encourage children to use this when perhaps they can't find the work that they're trying to access for the day, or maybe they've done something extra creative that's sort of different to the assignments that they've had, then they can share it here as well. And then there's also the upcoming. So this will actually show you any assignments that are due, so that you can sort of manage that as well. And then we go into the classwork tab, which is the main area that we focus on. So I'll jump into that aspect here. So there's a lot in here. So I am actually going to sort of move into sort of demoing Google Classroom in a second so that you can see what that really looks like. But the sort of key thing to note is obviously this is where all of your assignments and all of the materials for the lesson will be. And then obviously I've highlighted some 3 key areas that are sort of helpful for you to be aware of. And that's being able to obviously see your marking and feedback section, and also to be able to find any attached files and links. And then obviously the click to view assignment is one of the most important aspects as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to switch my tab over so that I can come in and show you what Google Classroom looks like. So I'm currently logged in as a child. So exactly the same way that if you were to open up your child's Google Classroom right now, this is how it would look. So as I mentioned, that stream is a sort of a ever scrolling stream. So when any posts are made, this is where they will appear. And as always, it could be a spot where you may have a question about the assignment that you need to go in and ask, or you may have something that you want to share. So this is where you would go through and do that. So if you did need to ask something, you would just simply tap into that box and then you can add it in here. If, for example, you'd been doing some incredible learning at home that you wanted to share, and perhaps your child wanted to share that with the class, they can use that add function and either select something directly from their Google Drive. They could add a link in, they could attach a file. So if they've been working perhaps in another app that exports as a video, that they could go in and use that file option. Or perhaps maybe they'd found a really helpful tutorial that they wanted to share. They can use that YouTube option as well. So just coming down into the stream, just so you can see sort of what may come up, is that there could be a question, for example, that comes up, and you can identify those questions just with that little question icon that appears. So for this one, how are you feeling today? And then all I have to do is just select the correct answer. And then you'll notice that there is a hand in button that then appears. Once it's then pressed, it'll then say to submit it. So that's as simple as being able to respond to a quick question there. And again, if I scroll through, I will see some of those assignments, and depending on how your teachers set up their classroom, they may have these assignments appear here. However, I always recommend to actually go into the classwork tab to be able to find those assignments, as it's much easier to be able to manage. Now, when you go into the classwork tab, a couple of things that are really helpful to note is if you ever wanted to see all of the work that your child's been doing, you can tap onto that view your work, and this will show all of the assignments and all of the pieces of work that have been handed in. And you'll also be able to see on the side here any that have been assigned or returned by the teacher, and any that were missing as well. And then you've also got the class drive folder, which is just located within Google Drive, and it's where all of the assignments are kept. So in terms of the assignments that are here, I can see this one is a little book with that bookmark on top, and this is where sort of any material can be posted. So it's usually things that perhaps are a tutorial video, maybe to help them understand how to use a new app. It could be sort of just a book that the teachers ask them to read, and they can just simply go in and use that view material option to be able to access it. Otherwise, they can just simply click onto the link at the top here. Now, when it comes to Google Classroom, the organization is in topics, and depending on your school and your teachers, they may organize this in a different way. So they may organize it by subject areas. They may decide to organize it by weeks as well. But you can always scroll through and access all of your topics on the side here. So if you just simply tap on all topics, it will show all of them. If, for example, I just wanted to see my English assignments, when I tap on English, this will then only display those assignments there. it's important to note that obviously if I want to go back and see the rest of my assignments, then I need to tap onto all topics to be able to navigate back, so that you can actually see all of them in one location. Now, when you go onto an assignment, all you need to do is simply tap onto it to then expand it. You'll notice in the top right corner here that there is the due date. So if I wanted to see when that assignment is set to be due and to be completed by, this will actually give me that there. And then underneath, there is the specific lesson instructions, the tasks or details that they may need for that assignment. Again, this may be sort of limited or quite lengthy, depending. It could be as well that the instructions may not be here, but you'll often find them then within the task or perhaps within a video if that's what your teacher has decided to do for that task as well. Now, the important thing to know for the children is obviously they can go in and click onto these links to open them up. However, the best thing for them to do whenever they find an assignment is to use the View Assignment button at the bottom here. Now, the reason for that is this actually shows them their work screen for that specific assignment. So if they have any questions about the class that they want to sort of find out more about, maybe they've got a specific question, they can go in and use that class comments section, which is just around that specific assignment. So rather than going into the stream and just asking a question, they can actually open the assignment up and ask a specific question directly within there, which means that obviously for the teacher, it's easier to be able to help and see what the problem might be. On the right-hand side, you'll see your work. So this is where your child's work will be. If the teacher has assigned a task for them to complete, you'll see that it will have that attachment already there. Now, this doesn't mean that if, for example, you wanted to upload something that you've done at home, so maybe you've taken a photo of something, or maybe they've been working on some paper and you wanted to upload this, you can use that add or create option and they get a series of different ways that they can attach it. So if it was perhaps a photo, you can just add it as a file. If it was a link, maybe they've been working on a website and wanted to share their finished project, then they can use that link option there. Or if they've done something in their Google Drive, they can add it from here. If, for example, maybe your teacher hasn't added for them to work on a Google Doc to perhaps type something up, or maybe a Google Slides if they're presenting their learning, or maybe the teacher's given them a Google Docs and they decide, you know what, I want to do it as a presentation, or maybe I want to make a website using Google Sites, or I wanted to present it, say, for example, in Adobe Spark, then actually they can go in and attach that directly. So they don't have to sort of be just follow what's there. They can actually go in and add their own. So maybe they've done additional work and they want to share that with the teacher. This is where they would go in and attach it. As soon as they've finished the assignment, they would need to use that hand in button. It may come up and say turn in. So, and this is very dependent on the language that the child's Chromebook is set to. So it's just a sort of quick little caveat that if it doesn't say hand in and says turn in, then that is why it is actually just the language that the Chromebook is set to. And I'll show you a little bit about how to access those in a moment. And it's also worth saying there is a private comments section as well. So if your child and you wanted to ask the teacher a specific question about that assignment, or maybe they had difficulty completing it, this is where they would go in and that private comment is only visible by the teachers of that class. So when I tap on hand in for this assignment, it'll give me that prompt to say hand in your work. And then all they need to do is simply tap hand in. And that will then be ready for the teacher to view. Now, what happens in that process is the child does then lose access to be able to go in and make any changes. So they then essentially change to view status of that document or the presentation that they've added. If, for example, they suddenly realize that they wanted to work on it a little bit more, or maybe they hadn't quite finished, or they'd submitted it but then had gone and done something in addition to that, all they need to do is tap unsubmit, It'll prompt them and remind them that any changes that they do make, they just need to make sure they hit resubmit again. So just to show you, if, for example, maybe I'd gone in and created a Google Doc, or I wanted to create a Google Doc, I can use that create option there. And what that'll do is it will open up that Google Doc for me, but you can see here, I can now hand that in, and that is then ready for the teacher to be able to go through. So if I just come back again, just to that general stream, okay, I will then see that status has changed from assigned to handed in. So this is just important to sort of note. It's obviously really important as well to make sure that actually the children have completed that assignment and not just pressed hand in. We often see that that can happen occasionally. So the other thing just to note as well is that obviously when they do view an assignment, most of the links will be here. If, for example, a teacher has added more than just a couple of links, then it's actually easier to be able to view them when they go in via that view assignment option, to be able to access all of them really easily. And it can be that, for example, this one here is just a PDF that's come up for them to go through and read. So they don't actually need to do anything else with that. And then all the other part of the task was just to simply go in and complete a Google form. So again, they can then go through and answer those questions and respond to it. And then they just hit submit at the bottom. And again, as soon as they've then finished that assignment, it is really important that they come back in and then use that hand in or turn in button to submit their work. This is our sort of only way of checking to make sure that the children have completed their work. So it's always worth prompting them to be able to go in, use that view assignment button that allows them to actually open up that assignment as well. And as I mentioned as well, there is the Google Calendar option at the top. So if you wanted to see sort of all of the assignments and when they were coming up to be due, this is where you can access that as well. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to come back to my Google Slides presentation now. And just take you through a couple of other things. And I should have mentioned as well that if you do have any questions, please keep them to the end, and I'll give you an opportunity to be able to answer, hopefully answer some of those questions. So as I mentioned, that uploading work part as well. So you'll be able to come back to this if you do have any questions as well. And this is just I've tried to sort of quickly document this for you all so that you can quickly see that process of being able to add something if your teacher hasn't given you that template to work on, and then to be able to hand it in or turn it in. Use those private comments if you do have any questions you want to ask your teacher specifically, and then just remembering to hand in. And if they have made if they press submit and realize actually they need to make any changes, they can just use that unsubmit. It's just important that they press hand in as soon as they're finished. So let me jump in. So I've just sort of brought this up because it's quite common that often we'll ask the children to go on to an application, and it could be that they actually don't know or haven't seen it before. And you may be aware that a lot of the Google icons have recently had a quick update. So you'll start to see these populate on their Chromebooks, but they are slightly different to what they were before. But these are most of the common ones that we use. Specifically in Chrome and Drive, and then we'll use slides and forms, often for lesson content, and then using obviously Google Classroom and Google Jamboard as well, and they may often go into things like Sites and Google Earth as well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a very quick sort of overview of some of the apps that you may see that your children will go on to complete, or they may perhaps be talking about at home that they may have used in the classroom. So just to give you all a little bit of an overview of what these apps are and just essentially how we use them in the classroom as well. So Nearpod is one of those ones that we use often for that teacher input and also to be able to allow all the children to be able to respond within a lesson. So when they go on to Nearpod, they will have the sort of lesson slides that they can work through. And then what's also quite nice is that it has a lot of built-in functionality. If you've seen it before, you may have known that there is a little draw it section where they do get that option to go through and draw, highlight, add text, add images directly into that content. And this can be both done as student paced, but also done within the classroom as well. So it's a great tool that we use for engagement within lessons as well. And then a big one for us, and we know just how much your children have loved using this, both during lockdown and obviously continued from last year's year 4s and into this year, is Adobe Spark. And there's 3 sort of tools within that. So that's Adobe Spark Post, Spark Page, and Spark Video. So just very different ways to be able to present learning and really share it in a unique way that's relevant and meaningful for our children as well. And then another one that you may have seen or that your children may enjoy going on to as well is something called Toontastic. This is a storytelling app. And what's nice about it is that there are backgrounds and characters that are already added. So they can use that to go in and tell stories, but they can actually go in as well and draw their backgrounds, draw their scenes, draw the characters that will appear in their story, and then they simply use their voice to actually talk through and record that story, and it pulls it all together into a video. So this is again a nice way if you have children that really enjoy being creative and love telling stories, this is a great way to actually demonstrate and share their learning. Another one that we commonly use as well is Flipgrid. So this actually allows your child to record a video response. They can also use it to share their screen as well. So what's nice about this is that it then comes up with almost like a gallery walk. So in a similar way that in the classroom, we might ask the children to go around and listen to each other's sort of points of view or go through and sort of share something. This is actually a really fun way for them to be able to do it, and they can then actually respond to each other's as well. So another one that you will have seen most likely during lockdown was the use of Jamboard. And again, this can be used in lots of different ways. So we do a lot of collaboration on Jamboard, but also it's great just for that ability for children to be able to go through and mark up a piece of writing, or to be able to sort of structure and sequence stories or events, create a timeline, mind map their ideas. So again, this is a GSuite tool, so it's really easy for them to be able to go on and access as well. And then this one is Text Help, and you may have noticed this within their extensions on their Chromebook. And there's sort of 3 main parts to the Text Help extensions toolbar, and that is read and write, which is fantastic for not only supporting their reading and writing, but just making content more accessible for all learners. And then there's also annotating PDFs. So I know that sometimes you may be sent a PDF and you want them to be able to go through and highlight content. You may want to make some notes or to type directly onto it. You can do that using that annotating PDFs option. And there's also Equatio as well, which allows you to go through and insert maths directly. And I'll come in and show what this looks like just so that you can actually see. So I'm just going to come back into the student view within Google Classroom and then toggle on to that read and write toolbar. Now, when I tap onto that from my extensions, what you'll then see is this toolbar that suddenly appears at the top of the screen. And what I can do is there is a built-in dictionary. So if I was to tap on any word, it will then define that directly for me and I can scroll through that. There is also a built-in picture dictionary as well. So when I go through, I can use this as a way, especially to help understand the context. It could be as well that they're really struggling to understand what the question's asking of them. So they can actually select that and then use that play button. And what this will then do is it will read it word for word, and you can see as that goes through, and they can play and stop that as they go through and access that content. As well, there is a screen masking tool. So this is, again, another tool just to help make it more accessible so that they can really focus in on that line that they're reading on. So again, just a really helpful way as well. And if they're doing any research where they perhaps might be on a website, then they may like to use those highlighting tool options as well. And they can also simplify a page as well. So if, for example, they've gone onto a website that has a lot of information, maybe ads, this simplify page option just puts it into a easy to read page. So you can see here, just simply by simplifying it down, I can go through and sort of change how that's viewed. I can also change that sort of color layout, and I can even change that font as well to make it more accessible. And the last thing that I wanted to mention as well is that the read and write toolbar as well can also be translated. So if English isn't your first language, then you can actually go into the options section in here, use the translation option to then select the language that you'd like for this to be translated into. And that means that actually when they go through and are accessing any of that content, then it can very quickly be translated for them. So it's just a really helpful tool just to mention briefly that they've got access to when they're on their Chromebooks as well. The other one is using and exploring the world. So you may see these apps come up, and that is Google Expeditions, Google Earth, and then Google Tour Creator. There are other ones that we use, but these are the common ones that we sort of are looking at right now. And then another one that you may have seen come up is Kahoot. And this is a great one for quizzes and for assessment. And it's just a really engaging way for children to be able to sort of quickly share their responses and work through as well. So they just simply go in, they enter the PIN, or they'll use the direct link that may have been shared via Google Classroom, and they can go on and then complete that as well. So I've obviously gone through quite a lot. There are, just before I do get onto questions though, a couple of things that I wanted to share. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen briefly and just present to my whole screen now, just to actually take you through a couple of key things within the Chromebook that you may not be aware of. So just one thing to sort of keep in mind is, and I'm just going to sort of jump into this one here. So at the bottom of their Chromebook is the shelf. Now this is where all of their apps will appear. If they don't see an app that they're looking for, they can simply tap on to this one and then swipe up, and this will allow them to see all of their apps. They can also just simply use that search bar at the top to find an app that they're looking for. And also just sort of very quickly just to mention as well that those extensions that I mentioned before, so the read and write toolbar is just at the top here. They've got that PDF annotation. So if you are accessing a PDF, then you can go through and use that. Equally, if they wanted to insert some maths, so being able to actually properly write a fraction, then they can go through and use that as well. Now, if they don't appear at the top, like you can see mine at the moment, then they may be hiding behind this little jigsaw piece here. So if they tap onto this, then they will see that sort of breakdown list, and they can use that little pin option to pin it so that it appears at the top here.
We can't really see anything that you're showing off now.
Sorry?
We can't really see anything on your screen at the moment.
So I'm just talking about the extensions that are at the top here.
Okay, because we can't see what extensions you're talking about. Just follow your voice.
Oh, it's dropped my screen off. Sorry, let me come back in. Thank you.
It's okay.
Can you all see my screen now?
No, not yet.
No.
Okay, I do apologize. It's showing that it's sharing on my end, but it's not coming through on yours. Let me just try again. There we go. Okay, perfect. So now you will be able to see. I do apologize for that not coming through. Okay, so if I then come into those, let me just jump back once more. Okay, so those extensions that I was talking about is just at the top here. So when they go on, they can access those at the top here. If they don't appear in that top right corner, they may be hiding under that jigsaw piece here. That's where all of the extensions that they have can be found. Now, it is worth mentioning that a couple of them do have the sort of creative cursor that you may have seen. This actually can cause a couple of problems. So if ever there is an extension that does sort of cause any problems, they can tap on those three dots and then just toggle the options to turn it off as they go on, if that is the case. And then a couple of other things just to mention as well is that within the clock down the bottom right corner, this is where their settings are, and it's worth noting in particular just the accessibility settings that are built into their Chromebook. So in here, they can use the select to speak. So again, if they're reading any content or accessing any content, they can then simply highlight over the top of it and it will read that content aloud to them. They can also use the dictation, which will allow them to go through and record their voice and respond as well. So this is just another helpful way for them so that they can actually type and just simply use their voice to type as well. They can also go through and use an on-screen keyboard. So if their keyboard suddenly stopped working, then they can actually go through and use this temporarily as well. And there's also a couple of other sort of really helpful things that are in here as well. But it's just to note that that's obviously one thing that can come up. And then, as I mentioned, all of those apps are on the shelf at the bottom, and they can tap onto the launcher in that bottom left corner and then just simply swipe up to be able to view all of their apps as well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just come back and stop presenting. And I'm just going to sort of toggle on so that you can actually ask any questions. So what you'll see now is in the top right corner of your screen, you will see a little chat icon and you can type in there any questions that you may have. I haven't obviously had this on during, but I've turned that on now. So you'll be able to actually go through and ask any questions that you may have. So Tara, so they're given a Chromebook in Key Stage 2, so that's year 3 up, so year 3, 4 and 5. Yes, so if you have a Chromebook at home or you have another device, they can most definitely sign in and use that at home. So when they want to go in and access any of that content, they can do that at home as well. So Diane, really good point. So the points that come up in the assigned work. So let me just toggle through so I can show you. So what you'll notice, and I'll just come out of this for a second, is that when you go into view assignment, you may notice that there are sort of the points aspect at the top. Now, this is sort of mainly around what Google Classroom uses, their sort of point system for being able to mark and give feedback, depending on your school, your child's school, and how they use it. They may just simply set it to 100. They may not come up with a points value. So it just sort of depends on how they use that. But your teachers will usually be giving sort of a feedback comment in some way onto their learning as well. So Tara, this session was recorded, so you'll obviously be able to come back to it if there is anything that you want to, and also obviously to those parents that haven't been able to attend. And another question as well, can they access their work without the internet? Yes, they can. So if they can't get on to the internet, you can use offline access to be able to download those content files that they need access to. However, you will obviously need to have connected at some point to be able to do this. Yes, so we'll send this recording out as well as the presentation so that you can come back and access that as well. So the apps that I went through, they're not all of the apps that we use. They are some of the apps that we do use, and obviously there are plenty more. And all of the apps your children are able to install, they can download them via the Google Play Store. So they can actually go in and they'll only see those apps that have been assigned to them to install. If you have another device at home, so an iPad or a laptop or a phone that they may be using, then you can, of course, go on and download them on there as well so that they can access them that way. But obviously, they do have them on their Chromebook as well. So Karen, is it possible to buy another Chromebook for children that are in the infant school? We can actually send you some information around that because there's obviously Chromebooks come in a range of different price ranges and device capacity as well. So Diane, in terms of should children be completing all their assigned work in school or should parents be checking that it is completed every day? So in terms of that, most of the work obviously will be either done within school or it might be set and the children will come back to it at a different point. So it's just so that you're aware. You know, if anything is to happen, if we were to go into another lockdown, hopefully not. But if that did happen, then obviously we want you all to be sort of familiar and understand that you can actually go in and check what work that they're doing as well. It's also a nice way that you can actually go in and see what assignments they've actually been completing in the school day if you wanted to. But there isn't an expectation that you're obviously going in and checking that every day. Now, I am conscious of time and hopefully to give you all some time back. If you do have any questions that maybe haven't been answered or maybe that come to you later on, please do email it@leoacademytrust.co.uk and one of the IT team will get back to you. As I mentioned, we will share this recording and those slides later on. But as always, thank you so much for all of your help. And I do hope that this has been sort of a little bit of an insight into using Google Classroom and a little bit about the Chromebooks as well. So have a wonderful day and stay safe, everyone.